Hey, are you going to do a Scarlet this week?
No, it's finals week. Let's just not worry about it.
I won't have to do one this week, right? Pat probably hasn't even seen this story yet, and it's not even that big of a deal. I mean, Bo doesn't even...
Oh, come on.
Well, volleyball managed to beat a highly ranked Washington team in Washington. Basketball finally got back to its winning ways, albeit barely after dropping back-to-back home games. But no, instead, we get to talk more about someone who doesn't even work here anymore. Fine. I'm going to try and cover everything I can with the whole gossip around Bo Pelini in Nebraska, and then hopefully I'll never have to talk about it again. Let's start with L for leaked audio legacy. For those of you who don't know, there was a leaked audio tape of a conversation involving Bo Pelini. No, not that audio tape from last year. The UCLA tape is so 2013. We're on to something way different. A transcript of a Coach Pelini's final meeting with his players, which took place at Lincoln North Star High School. I'm not going to read off the transcript because it's incredibly not safe for work, and I'm still not sure how I feel about just putting something up online that was meant to be a private conversation in the first place. Either way, it mainly boils down to this. Bo told his players about some of the details involved with his firing, but what seems to be the story here is Bo's profanity-laced comments directed mostly towards Nebraska Athletic Director Sean Eichhorst. This shouldn't really come across as a shock to anyone, as it was obvious that the two have been at odds almost immediately after Tom Osborne retired, and may or may not have been forced out, of his position as athletic director. Of course, Bo has moved on to Youngstown State as their new head coach, and Eichhorst probably will continue to appear in public as little as possible. This doesn't really affect anything on that level. Besides, Eichhorst was the athletic director at Miami before coming to Nebraska. You really expect me to believe he hasn't already been called any of those things Pelini said 100 times over? Next we have R for reputation. What does all this mean for either Bo, Eichhorst, or anyone else? Likely nothing, to be honest. It's hard to believe that anyone at Youngstown State is going to be that bothered by the comments, as Bo showed specific animosity towards the administration here at Nebraska, and even went so far as to praise his president at Youngstown State, who just so happens to be Jim Tressel, for being someone who really understands and knows football. And I don't see why anyone would get mad at Eichhorst directly who wasn't mad to begin with. I mean, technically, he was the one who was wronged in the situation in the first place. While some people who hate Bo would love to think that this will tarnish his reputation or point out to how this is an exclusive reason why he was fired, there are others who just really want to believe that Eichhorst actually has some agenda against Husker football and wants to bring about its demise. None of those people are going to get any satisfaction from any of this. And ultimately, this audio tape, or even the last audio tape, or the sideline tirades, or daring the university to fire him, is not why Bo was finally let go. Had he won out and brought home a national championship, nobody would have cared even a little bit about what he had to say about Nebraska fans, and that's just the truth. Ultimately, Bo was a guy who couldn't win enough, and everything else just made his firing more justifiable and easier to do. Next we have C for cussing. Now, I'm not going to do any of that on this show, because last time I did, I got an angry phone call from my mom. But let's seriously look at this story objectively for a second. If you're honest with yourself, Bo cursing is not the story here. It doesn't matter who it was directed to or what was said, because lots of coaches cuss all the time. I had coaches dating back to middle school who would yell and cuss, so pretending like there's a story there is just silly. Now, I know this is a foreign concept to some Husker fans, and I think that's because a lot of them have the shining beacon of what a head coach should look like in Tom Osborne, but that's just not the case in this day and age. Most coaches at basically every level cuss, even if only a little, and pretending that this is any different is laughable. Now, had he maybe said something incredibly derogatory or racist or what have you, such as when the Donald Sterling audio was released, this would be a whole different story. But just because this offends you doesn't make it a primary story here or really a story at all. People cuss, and that's just something that we have to live with. I mean, if you're more concerned with what curse words Bo said rather than what he said about the program administrators and the leadership at the university, then I'd question if you even care about Nebraska football at this point. Finally, we have our first ever emote on the Scarlet letter and end with, so why does any of this matter? Really, it doesn't, at least not in the context of Bo Pelini, and here's why it shouldn't matter to you. There are really three schools of thought here. One is that Bo is wrong about the program and just upset about his firing, which creates a toxic program and could harm potential growth, recruiting, and ultimately winning. The second is that Bo is right about the program and probably still upset about his firing, and the administration has created a toxic program and could harm potential growth, recruiting, and ultimately winning. Or three, that it doesn't matter if Bo is right or wrong because just by him saying it, he's created a toxic program and could harm potential growth, recruiting, and ultimately winning. The fact of the matter is, all of these are either happening or not regardless of what Bo says. Say that Bo was in fact wrong. That means that Nebraska has just cut loose the thing making the program toxic, and thus nothing is going to happen to the program as a whole. The problem has been identified and solved by Pelini being forced out and moving to Youngstown State. Okay, but just say Bo saying it is enough to create toxicity in the program. I don't think that's the case here. The administration has already showed that they're taking a vastly different approach in how their head coaches are viewed by the public by the hiring of Mike Riley, someone who people can't rave about enough for his character and integrity and willingness to raise good men and good football players. So again, the problem has been solved. And finally, what if Bo was right? What if the administration actually is the issue here? Well, then this still doesn't matter. I mean, regardless of what Bo said, unless there were to be drastic administration changes, everything would stay the same. Bo leaving wouldn't impact the decisions made by them, which means that if they really were destroying our program from the inside out, it's going to keep happening regardless of who's the head coach. So let's just stop pretending like this means anything toward our program. The truth is, it's happening or not, and there's really nothing we can do about it either way. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to follow us at Cornfed Sports and at Cornfed Live on Twitter for any and all updates on Husker sports. And from all of us here at Cornfed Sports, have a wonderful holiday season.